In the late 1990s, Marcus Reichel and his team at Washington University placed subjects inside fMRI and PET scanners. Functional magnetic resonance imaging, or fMRI, measures brain activity by detecting changes in blood flow, while positron emission tomography, or PET, uses radioactive tracers to map metabolic rate. Reichel's objective was to map the specific brain regions that activate when humans perform active cognitive tasks, like solving math equations or reading text. The experimental design relied on a standard assumption. When a subject finished a cognitive task and was told to stare at a crosshair and do absolutely nothing, their brain activity should logically drop. The brain, lacking external demand, was expected to power down into a state of rest. But the data showed the opposite. Every time a subject stopped performing an external task, a specific coordinated set of brain regions immediately spiked in metabolic activity. As soon as a new external task began, this mysterious network quieted down. This chart shows the brain's baseline energy consumption compared to the cost of active tasks. The human brain makes up only 2% of our total body mass, yet it constantly consumes 20% of our total energy. Engaging in focused cognitive tasks adds only about 5% to this massive baseline drain. The majority of the calories your brain burns are consumed when you believe you are doing nothing. Biologically, the human brain never rests. The concept of a metabolically dormant resting state is a complete illusion. In 2001, Reichel published a landmark paper naming this persistent background program the default mode network, or DMN. The DMN is a large-scale system of interacting brain regions that exhibits highly correlated activity when we are not focused on the outside world. Over the following 2 decades, popular science adopted a series of metaphors to explain Reichel's discovery. It was branded the daydreaming network, the resting state, and most famously, the storyteller of the self. These literary metaphors are epistemological errors. They take subjective human experiences and present them as biological mechanisms, obscuring the highly computational nature of the brain. The DMN's actual mandate is rigorous and specific. It is a multi-system infrastructure designed to computationally process entities that are physically absent from your immediate sensory environment. To accurately map human cognition, we must strip away the literary myths and replace them with precise anatomical and computational realities. The first misconception is anatomical. The default mode network is frequently discussed as a single unit that turns on and off as one block. Research published by Andrews Hanna in 2012 proved that the DMN is composed of at least 2 distinct subsystems. The first is the medial temporal subsystem, or MTL, which is centered around the hippocampus and is responsible for retrieving memories and spatial navigation. The MTL utilizes episodic memory fragments to simulate future scenarios. When you imagine an upcoming vacation, your brain does not pull from a blank canvas. It reconstructs these fragments into a predictive simulation, a process researchers term mental time travel. Harvard psychologist Daniel Schachter demonstrated this dual-direction mechanism through clinical data. Patients who suffer hippocampal damage and lose their episodic memory do not just lose their ability to recall the past, they simultaneously lose the ability to construct coherent scenarios about their own future. The second engine is the dorsomedial prefrontal subsystem, or DMPFC, a region in the upper frontal lobe involved in processing social information. Instead of simulating time, it simulates other minds, generating calculations about the social intentions and beliefs of the people around us. These 2 distinct simulation engines feed their outputs into shared integration hubs, specifically the medial prefrontal cortex and the posterior cingulate cortex, to merge past data, future predictions, and social mapping. Recalling your past, planning your week, and reading a colleague's social cues are not different cognitive categories. They utilize the exact same computational mechanism, simulation. This brings us to the most pervasive myth, the idea that the default mode network exists to write a continuous literary story of human identity. This split-screen visualization illustrates the difference between the narrative myth and the biological reality housed in the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, or VMPFC. The VMPFC is a region in the lower frontal lobe responsible for processing risk, value, and emotional responses. It does not write a biography. It continuously updates an internal predictive model based on strict probabilities. The VMPFC takes constant inputs from your episodic memories and your bodily emotional states. Every time you make a choice, the network takes the result and adjusts the algorithmic weights for your next decision. This reduces the energy you must spend the next time you face a similar situation. The proof of this algorithmic model comes from clinical data gathered by Antonio Damasio, specifically his work with patients suffering from VMPFC lesions, like the case study of patient EVR. EVR presented a fascinating paradox. His raw memory remained perfect. He could recite the factual details of his past. His story was intact. Yet his ability to use that past data to navigate future decisions was destroyed, leading him to make catastrophic personal choices. The predictive model was broken, even though the raw data was completely untouched. We see this breakdown in early-stage Alzheimer's disease. Amyloid plaques target the central hubs of the DMN first, dismantling this predictive capability and the ability to guide future behavior long before historical memories are erased. The self is not a literary narrative we whisper in our own ears. It is a highly efficient, probabilistic algorithm required for biological survival. The final myth requires us to look at the DMN's functional opposite, the Central Executive Network, or CEN. The CEN is a brain system responsible for managing highly focused attention, working memory, and interaction with the immediate external environment. The classic model characterizes the relationship between these two networks as an absolute anti-correlation. They operate like a rigid seesaw. When a task forces the CEN to activate, the DMN is suppressed. When focus breaks, the DMN takes over. Getting locked on either side of the seesaw carries severe cognitive costs. An overactive CEN, a state of intense, unyielding external focus, cuts off access to internal simulations. You lose awareness of your own emotional state and your ability to read the social intentions of others, leading to contextual blindness. The opposite pathological extreme is unregulated dominance of the default mode network, which clearly manifests as a state of depressive rumination. In 2010, researchers Killingsworth and Gilbert tracked thousands of subjects and found that the human mind wanders roughly 47% of our waking hours. This unguided drifting is strongly correlated with a drop in overall mood. Clinical depression manifests as a mechanical failure of the brain's switching mechanism. The DMN fails to quiet down when the external environment demands attention, forcing the subject to process negative internal simulations while trying to execute external tasks. A healthy brain is not defined by the sheer processing power of its focus or the depth of its imagination. It is defined by the mechanical flexibility to switch between these two networks cleanly and instantly. However, there is exactly one state of peak human cognition that completely breaks this rigid seesaw rule: divergent creativity. In 2018, neuroscientist Roger Beatty mapped the brain activity of original thinkers during complex problem solving. He found their brains execute a paradox. They activate both the DMN and CEN simultaneously. This network map displays the computation of a breakthrough. When intense executive focus drops during a period of incubation, the DMN operates as a small world network. A small world network is an architecture where physically distant nodes are connected by short, highly efficient pathways, allowing data to travel rapidly across the entire system. Because the CEN's logical filters are lowered, the brain engages in spreading activation. Concepts stored in completely distinct areas of the cortex begin to cross-pollinate without logical constraint. This massive generation of random connections is just noise until the salience network steps in. The salience network is an evaluation system detecting and filtering important stimuli from the background noise. The moment it detects a high-value, novel connection within the DMN's spreading activation, it instantly snaps the CEN back online to evaluate and execute the idea. These moments of sudden insight are not magical interventions from the subconscious. They are the result of a precise, high-speed synchronization protocol triggering across 3 distinct neural networks. The human brain does not operate in exclusive binaries of focus versus daydreaming or self versus the world. It operates through dynamic, fluid coordination. We are built with a dual mandate. The central executive network processes the immediate tactile reality directly in front of us. The default mode network computationally renders the void. It builds models of the past, the future, and the minds of others we cannot directly see. When we design an environment of constant external digital stimulation, we monopolize the CEN. By ensuring our attention is perpetually directed outward, we actively starve the DMN of the metabolic resources it requires to build a coherent, predictive self. Discarding the metaphor of the resting state forces us to recognize the intense metabolic labor required to maintain identity, to plan effectively, and to construct human empathy. What looks like a vacant, resting mind from the outside is actually the brain engaging in its most computationally heavy and most uniquely human work.